Today, December 8th, is the 42nd anniversary of a far less discussed but very successful assassination conspiracy, the murder of John Lennon. It's been convenient to dismiss the assassination of John Lennon as some kind of a one-off lone nut aberration. How many times are we going to buy this? It's almost comical that after a series of lone nuts, starting with Booth and Oswald, and going on to James Earl Ray and Sirhan, and don't forget Arthur Bremer and John Hinkley and Squeaky Fromme, the would-be assassins of George Wallace and Ronald Reagan and Gerald Ford. In fact, have you ever noticed that assassinations always fail when the intended victim is a Republican? Very convenient. And after knowing all this, and all we know about the CIA and FBI and witnesses silenced and evidence destroyed, we would still believe that Mark David Chapman acted alone. I mean, it's actually ridiculous. It's just easier to believe that it wasn't part of some vast, dark conspiracy to control America. You know, even though John Lennon was a wealthy man on par with the powers that sought to destroy him, he symbolized radical change, and that was dangerous to the status quo. He didn't hold office. He didn't need to be elected. He just was, and people idolized him and would follow him in much the same way they would for Martin Luther King before he was killed by the same forces. Here's just a few salient facts to consider. Lennon had been under surveillance for up to 10 years prior to his murder by at least the FBI and CIA, as well as other agencies. He was on Nixon's enemies list. Nixon, who lost to JFK, was involved in the plot to murder him and was rewarded with the presidency 5 years later. Lennon's activity had reached a point where the government deemed them so dangerous, they attempted to deport him. That's a pretty drastic response to a beloved ex-Beatle if they didn't think he was a serious threat. John and Yoko had written songs, marched, and raised money for political prisoners and causes around the world. John Lennon was probably the most prominent anti-war activist in the world at that time. In shades of Lee Harvey Oswald, Chapman's movements are contradictory and mysterious. He winds up in Russia as part of a YMCA exchange program and works for another shady Christian front organization in Lebanon during a time of major CIA activity there. Was he recruited, like Oswald, Sirhan, and the others, by the CIA as a Manchurian candidate, parallax view, hypnotized, programmed assassin? Was Catcher in the Rye part of Chapman's hypnotic programming? Was Catcher in the Rye the code that triggered his actions? We don't know, because once again, mysteriously, the files are sealed. Why? The people who have perpetrated these crimes would prefer you dismiss these theories as crackpot craziness, and they put a lot of time and energy into this lie to cover their bloody tracks. It makes their job easier when the truth is shoved to the fringe, to the margins, unless it gains real traction, in which case the truth must be obliterated. Finally, you might say, how does this concern me? It's before my time. Well, remember, everything is before your time except right now. And your time right now, your freedom, your future, are profoundly affected by these past crimes.